In this video, we'll look at the Buildings Pack and Service Packs available with the latest release of Witness Horizon, and an overview of the new Contact Center Horizon model. This new model illustrates the use of the new designer packs, and there are many aspects of the model that should be of interest to all customers, irrespective of the industrial sector that you represent. I've opened up Witness here. I've made the tabs a little bit larger, the designer sets, because this is going to be the focus of where we're looking for the next few minutes. And we have all our old favourites here, the transport tab, the data tab, continuous reports. And now we have 4 additional packs. We have the manufacturing pack, the service pack one, building pack, and a charting pack. The new charting tab will be the focus of other videos, so here we're going to concentrate on the extended service pack and the building packs that have been introduced. The new buildings pack has a range of new exteriors and interiors to make modelling easy. If I bring some of them into a model, so let's bring a depot, a hospital, a factory. Let's go down a little bit here and scroll the designer element window and bring in a general unit. You can put these on the window as normal, and you can size any of the units by dragging and holding the control key down as you drag. With this display on the 2D screen, we get the corresponding display on the 3D when we create the 3D view. So here we have the 4 elements that we've displayed being taken through into a 3D view. Now the external views of these objects are perfect for when you wish to do models of, say, ambulances arriving at hospitals, supply chain models between different factory sites and distribution centres, indeed anything where the movement of things between different model elements is required. Some of these elements, for example this unit here, if we just fly into the unit, some of these elements can also be used internally, and parts of models can be built into these units. Let's start again with another model, and let's look now at some of the shapes which have the word open at the end of them. This illustrates that the shape does not have a roof, and that means that the 3D model, a working 3D model, could be seen inside that shape. If, say, for instance, we pick the unit open display here, we get a very simple graphic in 2D. Just scale that a little bit. And if we went to the manufacturing pack, we could put various machines inside this pack, and we could just maybe put 3 or 4 of that general machine in to illustrate the point. And when we do 3D view of this display, you can see that we have the 4 machines lined up inside the open view, which would show the workings of those machines in the model much more easily than if there was a roof in the display. Now, one of the key things that you might need to do with this when you're using these open shapes is to right click on them, go to the 3D link, and then depending upon the size which you have drawn it on the 2D display, you might want to turn off the auto scale for the height and put in a fixed height, maybe here of 5 meters. Now if I do that and rebuild the view, you can see now that we don't have as tall a building, and that might be ideal for the building which we're putting together, make it more realistic. So sometimes when you're changing the scale of some of the objects, you'll need to adjust the height of the 3D environment building to make that match well the scale to which the other objects are drawn. You'll notice from the tree display that the building is actually brought into the model as a module. And that provides you a place to put the other elements in they can belong to the building, and that might be a neat way to organize your model. Let's have a look at the service pack, or the augmented service pack that we have in this release of Witness Horizon. And you can see we've added in a range of desks, cubicles, people, chairs, to augment those which we had in the service pack in the service edition of Witness in the first release of Witness Horizon, where we had the health elements and the elevator, the escalator, and some of the computer equipment. But this has been augmented now into a much more comprehensive display, and we're able to bring in, for example, cubicles into an office environment. So if we just put in a number of desks there into this factory unit, which of course isn't realistic, but let's just have a look and see how that would look. You can see how we can build up a 3D view, including operators at, for example, a call center. Here I open up the new contact center model that's included in the sample models in the Witness installation. You can see we've used one of the building exteriors. We've used some of the cubicle desks and the people and the chairs and the like. And we've also used some rectangles which we extrude to create other kind of effects of furniture in a simple way, and screens and partitions. When we build this into the 3D view, this is what we see. A fully functioning environment into which we've built our modelling elements. Let's start the model running, and the first thing that's going to happen here is people go off shift and then come back onto shift, and we can fly around watching this call center operate as it's running through the day. This is also using one of the other new shapes that we've put in the object library, which is a computer screen, which can be aligned in this case with the computers on the desk, and then a different material can be applied to that screen to show any information that you care to show at any point in the model. We're also illustrating with this model a set of counters and information on the wall, which is showing the queues building up for the different call center teams, and also providing a time display of the model in various places around the model. If I just rewind the model and batch to time 9:51, we'll notice that the queue for call center 2 here, team 2, is there are 4 calls waiting in that queue. The time is 15:51, so it's 9 minutes to 4 in the afternoon. And we can see that all the members of this team are on live calls, hence the reason the queue is building up. Interestingly enough, if we look around the other parts of the call center, the contact center here, we can see there are members of other teams, some of which are taking calls obviously, but some people are waiting for calls. So there's an imbalance of the resource mix here to the requirements of the call center, and of course that's something that's ideal to look at with a simulation model. If we go to the modular structure of the model, we can look at team 2 here, and we can look at the queue and explode the queue, and we can see exactly how long each of the calls have been waiting. So currently the 4 calls which are waiting to be answered, they've been here for, well, around about 5.5, 6 minutes, 9 minutes one of the calls there, and the other call is near 9 minutes as well. It's a long time for the people to wait to have their calls answered, but that's what these models are set up to explore. Let's have a look at some of the other interesting aspects of this model. So here we have our modular structure for the different teams and the time displays and the office building. And if we look inside the Team 2 module again, we can look at the staffing profile. In this model, we haven't used shift patterns at all. We're entirely building shift patterns out of the staffing profile distributions that we're putting into this model. There's a reading taken from this distribution, this profile time-based distribution, every hour, and that's the reading that we'll use for the number of staff available in that next hourly segment. All we're doing is updating, and that's done using a schedule command. Now that schedule command runs a function. For team 1 here, it's function update shift. In fact, all the teams operate in an identical way. And if we look at the code here, at first point this looks a little bit daunting, but it's not really. We're just reading in the hourly staff number from the profile distribution, and then we're altering the displays in 2D and 3D to represent who's on shift and who isn't on shift. So after we've read the number in from the profile distribution, we then have a num on shift variable, and if a person is on shift, we change the geometry in 3D to be the DCIC person geometry. And if they're off shift, as long as they're not busy, because in this model we do let them finish the call they're on at the end of the hour, but as long as they're not busy, we change the geometry to a blank geometry, which is a buffer geometry, which has no physical display at all. And at the same time, when the people go off shift, we turn their screens off. We make their screens have a new material, which is shown as dark grey. Notice too that the last action here is to redo the schedule command, which again in another hour in the model will run this function again to check for any changes in the patterns that you have staffed. Let's close the 3D window here and take a very quick look at some of the new graphs which we're using, which are some of the new charting available with the new data table components and elements in Witness. So here, for example, we can see the call queue, the average call queue across a day shown for each of the teams. This is another display of the same information but put on the same chart, so we can compare the sizes of the queue more easily on the same scale. And if we move further across in the model here, we can see another graph which is showing the staff utilizations each 10 minutes across the day. These charts are all dynamic, so if we just start them building again, you can see how this new dynamic chart appears. And this is showing the busy percentage. If we just zoom out a little bit for each of the teams, again for each 10 minutes across the daily pattern. I've opened up another model now because I want to show you that the new building pack is certainly not the only way of getting great backdrops for a model. So let's have a look at this model where the environment has been done in a completely different way, but in this model we're also using the escalators and the elevators from the service pack as well. So you can see some of the service pack objects being used in this model too. If we do a 3D of this model, here's the 3D view of that model. And we can see we've used extrusions of glass walls, of lines to create glass walls. And we've used extrusions of sections of rectangles for the flooring, to which we've applied a wooden texture. And you can see the quality of that texture is as good as you want it to be. And then we've built some of the objects from the service pack into this model. So we've built elevators and escalators. And if we start the model running, we can see that we're seeing how the different escalators will be able to cope with the different demands which are laid onto it by people arriving in different areas. Just one example of another kind of model environment that can be built using extrusions. We've given you a lot of different options to create fantastic looking models. That's all for this video. We've looked at the new extended designer packs and we've seen how they and extrusions can create great looking models quickly. A more in-depth look at the contact center model is planned to follow in another video. Thanks for watching.